After a recent investigation up at the Forford Dispatch, where Gary became under some kind of attack, we decided that we would do a follow-up interview to get the full story from Gary's perspective.
So after you've seen the footage from the Forford Dispatch and reviewing what actually took place, what are your feelings on the whole thing?
Well, I think for me personally, I found it quite bizarre to watch myself act in that way. As you're aware, working with many cases, we've been on usually quite jovial character, outgoing, get straight into the investigation, and we kind of build up some positive energy off each other. Whereas that night, for whatever reason, I was quite subdued, and things went wrong quite quickly for me. I think it was half an hour in the investigation, and it was just, that was me. I can't remember much after that. Most folk will probably believe that that's acting or fakery or whatever, but on my behalf, I just can't remember it, which was for me totally bizarre.
The whole situation was, from my point of view, was you were out of character from, after we filmed the intros and we then reset to actually do the investigation. Your whole characteristics had changed from your placid, normal, laid-back self to a more agitated, aggressive person, which we've never seen that in an investigation before.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what happened. I've just kind of went from one extreme to being quite subdued and not really participating, and then just suddenly escalated very quickly and became aggressive, abusive to our guests, clients, and obviously team members, which would never be my intentions whatsoever. It's quite embarrassing watching the footage and seeing yourself act like that as well, because obviously we pride ourselves on being very professional in our service, and to see that, it was quite shocking, and it was embarrassing because our clients have had to witness that, unfortunately.
Well, talk me through to what point you can remember to in the investigation.
Well, initially, obviously, we started off, we were doing the walkthrough because I'd never been there before, but yourself and Vanessa had been to the location, so we're familiar with it. And we'd done all our setting our equipment up, and I think we started the investigation. We were upstairs in one of the rooms, which is the file room, and we'd been hearing some noises, so team members went downstairs, and I think myself and you were making conversation with the young girl that was in the room. We were just chatting, making conversation about why she was there, what interested her in paranormal, and then within an instance the rest of the investigation is merely footage to me, because next thing I remember is your fine self taking me down the street and taking my photo outside a flower shop. And that's about it really for me. At that point I was obviously disappointed that I'd not investigated, well I felt I'd not investigated, and I was disappointed in myself that for whatever reason I'd acted like that during an investigation. So I was quite disappointed as well as embarrassed afterwards, so it's not really been a most pleasant experience for me on an investigation.
Since the incident had actually taken place, how have you felt within yourself coming away from the location? Have you experienced anything abnormal in your daily life?
Well, I mean, I think we spoke about before that obviously after I've left it was quite a shock, I guess, that I drove down the road and I never really thought much about it until I got home, and it was kind of like that, the initial shock of actually thinking what's just happened, and then actually getting home and I was thinking this is totally unprovoked, for no reason this has happened. And then as days went on I felt fine, just obviously goes over and over in your mind why has that happened, and you try to think of logical reasons for it. Nothing major's happened. I've had the occasional kind of strange dream, dogs crawling over the top of me, and I actually woke up in a kind of total hot sweat that I actually thought I could feel these dogs. I'd been googling words that I've never heard of before during the night, but within myself I personally think I'm just the way I normally am, which is quite a kind of cheery chappy, just kind of positive guy. So whatever's happened now. I'm just left with lots of questions that we don't really have answers for right now.
What do you think took place that night?
Well, I mean, we have went over this again together quite a lot. And I mean, I like to think there's a kind of rational, logical reason for most things. I'd like to think there's one for this. However, right now, and probably for some time, I won't be able to find one if at all I can. I mean, I do believe in possession, but because I've never experienced it or never witnessed someone experience it, I'm not entirely sure. I'm obviously swayed towards that because that wasn't me, and it would appear it was a possession. However, I'm not going to say that that was the case because I don't know for sure if that was the case. So until I can prove something's happened, I'm not going to say that that's what it is.
And you were certainly during the incident taking place, you did show signs of classic possession, with your mood changing very drastically. You were smelling rancid smells on 3 occasions. Now obviously the number 3 is quite significant when dealing with the demonic, as it's mocking the Trinity. So definitely there were signs there. Obviously when we were trying to get you down the stairs, at the bottom of the stairs you turned to me at one point and laughed, an almost sinister laugh I've ever heard in my life, and said to me, "Did you hear the growl?"
Yeah, that's a bit bizarre.
Again, these are all classic signs that you know there was something unhuman present. Whether it had fully affected you in that way or not, or whether there was something within yourself that actually prevented it from taking full hold of you. I mean, what was your daily routine on the day of the investigation?
I mean, on the day of the investigation, I'd previously been night shift the night before, so I was well rested throughout the day. I'd had the whole day sleep. I mean, I had travelled 3 hours, but I normally like to be there quite early, so I was there about an hour beforehand. So it wasn't jet lag via car, whatever you want to call it. I'd had a rest when I got there, and just like I always am on an investigation, it's like showing kids some candy. I was excited, ready to go. So I felt like I was up for the investigation, looking forward to it, as with any location. And I found it would be one of the kind of strangest things about the footage, watching it back now, was that at times there's parts of it that look like me as I normally am, and then there's parts of it obviously on the flip side that are totally out of character for me. And that was the kind of strange bit, because I can't remember a whole 2 hours where partially I appeared to be myself and partially it wasn't. So, I mean, again, that's something I can't explain. The whole memory loss thing bothers me because it's never happened before. The possession as such itself was kind of strange, but the fact that I couldn't remember it for me was more a personal thing, because, you know, I like to be in control of things. I like to be able to know what I'm doing, and for not to remember it was quite scary for me at the time. It still is, I suppose, that could happen to somebody.
What are your thoughts on the activity that you've seen and the evidence that you've seen that's been presented to you? Not the actual incident itself, but the evidence gathered surrounding the incident taking place. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the evidence gathered from our equipment, because we use a scientific approach, the evidence we catch is unexplained. I mean, we try and debunk stuff that is explainable, and then we're left with essentially paranormal evidence. So I mean, the things we picked up, like, we film in HD cameras, so it's easy to define what's dust, bugs, the usual things that people discard. So these light anomalies we've caught, potential voices that are a little bit jumbled at present. There's some strange knocks. All these things, I think, are evidence that there's activity there. There certainly is something there. What that something is, we don't know. We don't have that answer. However, it does certainly look like there's something happening at that location, which is again another strange thing, because we've previously visited there before, and very little had happened on that night. So it's another unanswered question of what is different about that location, other than I was there and the other female was there. That was the only thing different really about that other night. Maybe the two females.
Well, that's it, because we were there before, and to be fair, our first investigation there was very quiet. There was a couple of bangs. We could hear some moving around up the stairs, and obviously we caught a mist actually in room 42, which is the room that the incident really took place. But besides that, it was a very uneventful night. So for it to totally be flipped over on its head is bizarre for us.
Yeah.
It was certainly a shock to the client to see something like that. What she did get to see of it, because obviously we took the client and guest out of the situation immediately while we tended to you. For us, it was just totally out of character for you, it was out of character for the building, and it was something that we had never actually experienced or dealt with. Having a team member affected in that way. And we've attended many reported possession cases, which we've been able to dismiss through mental health issues and things like that. But for us to see someone like yourself who's totally sceptical to the buildings that we go into and very open-minded in that sense, to see that happening to you was a big shock to us.
Yeah.
I mean, my thinking on that would be, was this maybe something trying to tell you that they are there in a big way?
It's a pretty extreme way to tell someone, wasn't it?
I mean, I'm sure a light anomaly or something like that would have done would be sufficient.
It would have been sufficient enough, even if they just showed themselves in front of me. I've always said I'm sceptical pretty much, well, probably more so than you, obviously, for other reasons. But I mean, if I saw a full body apparition, that will make me be a believer. However, until that day, I'll remain sceptical. So for me to then experience that sort of thing that I can't explain, it really did make me change my way of thinking when I go to an investigation, because now I personally think that, I mean, there's been times where myself and Darren have went, and boys being boys, we've not done any protection, we've carried on, we've tried to use positive energy to get us through that investigation, which has worked fine, it's worked well, we've still got evidence. However, I'm kind of swaying towards maybe I should protect myself before I go, and that's probably something positive I can take away from this, because, I mean, I'm not immune from it, regardless of whether I'm a skeptic or not. I think I should protect myself from the unknown regardless.
Yes, the whole situation had a massive effect on the whole team. No, you know, you obviously yourself was personally affected.
Yeah.
And, you know, I felt totally run down for, you know, the 3 or 4 days, to the point that I had actually contacted my church to seek spiritual guidance and protection and baptism from there, because I was starting to get concerned that because of what had to be done had maybe affected me in a bigger way than what I thought initially. Obviously, when we're dealing with that kind of situation, the adrenaline is just pumping right through.
Yeah.
So, you know, the way that we see it is that one of our team members are in danger and need help.
Yeah, of course.
So at that point, you forget about everything that you've learned, and you do what needs to be done, which again, you know, can cause attachments to yourself. So I mean, it's had a massive impact on all of us, but hopefully now positives have taken from it, and we've learnt from the experience, and hopefully it'll never happen to anybody again, because that would just be horrible to have to go through that.
Of course.
What's your thinking on future investigations now? I mean, are you now apprehensive of doing them? Are you now more encouraged to do them to try and find out what happened, if there is a logical reason for it?
Well, at first, I mean, I had kind of questioned this. It was never in any doubt that I would stop. I would stop investigating. It was just that I was kind of cautious. I was thinking maybe I should give this a rest. You know, maybe I should take some time out and try and reflect on this. But then I thought, well, what's the time out going to really achieve? I think I maybe just need to take that bit of more of a cautious approach to an investigation. Maybe just take some time to relax and use some sort of protection for myself before going into an investigation. And that's not because I'm saying that there's something there. It's a precaution for me. I'm not saying that every location has got some sort of force that's going to possess you, because we all know that that's not the case. But as Darren knows and myself, that investigation is a passion of ours, and I will continue until the day I die, and then I'll just come back and haunt you. So I mean, it's one of these things. I'm not going to give up. I just think I'll be a bit more cautious, and maybe I'm open-minded anyway whilst I'm on an investigation, and that's part of why I found it difficult to understand, because I did nothing different. My mindset was the same. I was open-minded, and I just think that maybe for whatever reason, whatever was there wanted to show that it was there. So my things to take away from it is to be more protected on an investigation, and that's about it really. And obviously now I can obviously spot the signs of what was happening. If it was to happen to someone else, I'm aware of what's happened, and thankfully we've got a good team that managed to get me out and resolve the situation before it got way out of hand, because it was kind of going that way at one point, I think. It did look like it could go pretty bad.
It could have got nasty. During the initial part of when I actually asked you to take my place in room 42, because I was experiencing dizziness and just feeling off balance. When you stood there initially, I was speaking to you after the whole thing had calmed down. You said to me that you had seen a man dressed in a brown coat and brown trousers, and we had this conversation outside the building. I don't know if you remember much of it, but can you remember actually seeing this man, or whether you physically seen him, or whether it was a mental image that was given to you?
I'm not actually aware of when I told you this, that I saw this man with brown trousers and brown jacket, so I'm unsure of what answer to give you about this right now. Was this when I was...
This was outside.
Was I still...
When we went for Chinese
was
food...
Was I still being funny with you right now?
You were still being funny when we initially got you out the front of the building, and we were talking about the whole situation, when you were kind of floating in between being you and being somebody else.
Because you know my views on these got sort of kind of psychic images, if you like. You know my kind of opinions on that. I don't believe it. I'm not rubbishing the theory whatsoever. Everyone's got their own beliefs. However, I'm not a supporter of that belief. So for you to probably hear that, it was probably a bit of a...
It was a shock to me that
bit
you
of a
had said,
shock.
I've seen this man.
Yeah.
Well, at first, you give me two descriptions to begin with. The first one was, you seen the man wearing a long brown jacket and brown trousers.
Right.
Very quickly that changed to, I'd just seen this black mass coming towards me from the corridor into the room.
Right, so there is obviously a bit of conflict.
So there was conflict in what you had said, but I was interested to know whether you remembered that part actually taking place, whether you seen the man actually walking physically, or whether it was just like a mental projection.
I can't actually answer that because I'm unsure of at what point I'm supposed to have saw this figure as such. What's interesting though about one of my stories was on the night was if I had really seen this man with brown trousers and brown jacket, it actually does tie in with, like I said earlier, we don't normally use psychics for readings, but it actually does tie in very nicely. Coincidentally, maybe, I don't know, but it is a coincidence as such that I've spoke about this brown attired man to yourself, although I wasn't really aware of it until now, and we actually had a psychic medium send us a picture of a spirit he believed had potentially possessed me on that night, and he is actually wearing brown trousers and a brown jacket.
That's right.
Which is quite uncanny.
Now, to explain this whole situation with the mediums was that Gary and myself had a conversation to say, let's send some footage to two independent mediums and let's see what they get back from it. Now, we did have two offers and two people did do readings, but not from any footage, from photographs.
Yeah.
And from the photographs, the medium that had seen the photos that I know had actually sent me back an image of a man, and I didn't give him any details prior to this happening. I didn't tell him what had taken place. I could screenshot the messages that went back and forward.
We were sceptical of the whole theories as we're basically non-believers in psychics
absolutely.
As such. But like I said, you've probably got their own opinion, each their own. That is their belief.
Absolutely.
I'm never going to discard that belief, but we will always rely on our equipment for evidence. We're not going to use what the psychic has as evidence. It's just a very kind of uncanny resemblance to what Darren's describing that I'd said, even though I was unaware that I'd said it at the time, and until this point.
It was pretty spot on, and I think if I remember right, he has said that the image that he had projected reminded him of, I believe it was an album cover, and that is where this image is actually taken from. It was an album cover, and again it was very uncanny. Brown jacket, brown trousers, very scruffy, haggard looking man with long kind of hair, which was, again, it was coincidental that he had picked up on that and you had spoken about it.
Yeah, totally, because I never even reacted to the photo you sent me. I just, in my kind of own selfish way, I just thought, well, okay then, that's what he's came up with. It's a photo to me, just like any other photo that somebody sent me for analysis or whatever. But until this point, when you just said to me that I'd saw this man, it is quite uncanny actually. And I'm not saying that makes me a believer in psychics. I'm just saying that for matching up things and trying to corroborate evidence, then there possibly is something there that we were unaware of previously, and for whatever reason wants to make himself known or itself known. So.
Cool. I think that's it.
Yeah, it pretty much wraps it up. The only thing I would say is that I will never go back in that building again.
Yeah, well, we're due to go back up this Saturday, which is the 14th of June, and to actually show the client what took place after we had ushered her down the stairs away from the situation. So it'll be interesting to get the feedback from her, and whether anything like this has happened before, maybe during another investigation.
Of course. And I mean, the main thing is no one was hurt, everybody's well, and, you know,
Life goes on.
life goes on as the EPI.
That's it.
And that's it.